Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how you can replace an old railing like this and update it to make it look like this. I'm going to show you guys all the steps to install. It's easy to do and requires minimal tools, so follow along. As you can see, this railing here is all made out of wood. It is very old. These are 2x2 wooden pickets, and this is the cheapest way to build railings. I'm going to be replacing it with something a little bit more modern. This is what I'm going to be using. It is the Peak aluminum railings, and this is a really easy system to install. They come with all the posts, which I'll show you how those work, and get to installing. Now, when it comes to installing this new Peak aluminum railing, it's really simple, but there's a few pieces you need to make sure that you get. So there's different railing posts. There's posts that are designed to be used in the middle. There's posts that are designed to be used on the end. There's corner posts and stair posts. I'm going to open these up, show you what they look like, and then I'll show you what the actual railing system looks like. Now, when you're installing this Peak railing system, you need to make sure that you get the right pieces, which there's a lot of different pieces. So I'm going to explain to you what I'm using here. There's different posts. There's posts that are designed to be used in the middle section of the railing. There's posts that are designed to be used on the end of the railing. There's posts that are designed to be used on a 90-degree corner. And then there are the railing panels. First, I'm going to open up these posts and show you what they look like. Here's a closer look at these posts. So as you can see, I've got a middle post here. It accepts the railings on both sides. And then over here, I've got an end post where it only accepts the railing on one side. The nice thing is they provide all the hardware. So as you can see, I've got it laid out. We've got 5-inch structural legs for mounting these posts onto your deck. We've got screws here for attaching the railing onto the post, and then we have this cover for the bottom of the post itself. Now, this is the railing system. So as you can see, we've got a 6-foot pre-assembled piece. You can either buy these in pre-assembled pieces like this, which are the easiest to install, or you can get top and bottom rails and the balusters individually. That's a little bit more time consuming, but you can also install it like that. Install this railing, it's really simple. Basically, we figure out the spacing for our posts, and we want the spacing to be even. That's going to give you the nicest looking railing. I'll show you how I'm going to do that afterwards. But once we have our post placed, you take your pre-assembled panel and you simply cut it to fit in between the spacing. Now in my situation, as you can see, I've got this old railing. So I want to start by removing this old railing. Most of you probably are working from a new deck, so you can skip over the removal of this. Basically what I'm going to do is take a reciprocating saw and I'm going to cut these posts out flush with the deck. So that's going to allow me to remove this old railing so I can install this new one. This section is hard to see, but I'm simply just going around and using my reciprocating saw to cut these posts off flush with the top of the deck boards. So the only thing I suggest is get a nice long wood blade for your reciprocating saw, and this will cut them off no problem. As you can see, I have the posts roughly laid out where I want them to be. You can either figure out the spacing on your own by doing the math, or you can go on the Peak website and they have a program which will take the dimensions for your deck and give you equal spacing. Working on laying out these posts, and when we lay these out, measurements that we got for our spacing, we want to measure from the inside of one post to the inside of the next post. So once we have that, we can lay out all of our posts. And when you're laying out your posts, you need to grab a level and you need to hold the level on the side and make sure that the post is level, which means plumb, straight up and down, and you need to do this on 2 sides. Depending on your deck, if it's a new deck, it should be pretty close. If it's an old deck like mine, you're gonna have to shim these posts. So as you can see, I've got washers underneath this post here. Those washers, I just slide washers in, which helps to adjust the height of this post, and you slide them in so that you can get your post perfectly plumb. So you need to play around with it, but you want these posts all to be perfectly straight up and down and in line. Another helpful trick is to grab a speed square, place it along the outside joist on your deck, and then you can butt your post up against it. This makes sure that your post is nice and square. These are the fasteners that they provide with the posts. These are structural fasteners. So I'm going to screw these back holes into this rim joist, and then the other two holes we are going to screw into the deck. You want to make sure that these all go into something solid. So depending where your joists lay on your deck, you may need to add blocking in behind it so that you're screwing into some solid blocking. I've already done all the blocking, so I can put these down. These structural anchors that come with the posts require a specific bit. It's called a Torx bit, and the size is number 30. You'll have to purchase this on your own. I want to reiterate, to keep your post against your speed square, this is going to keep it square to your deck. When you're putting these fasteners in, you want to leave them up approximately an inch. This allows you to pivot these posts so that you can place the railing pieces in and slide them in, and then you can fully tighten these down. So I like to put 2 fasteners in, and then once I have all the panels on, I put the last 2 in and snug everything down. When you snug these down, you can try and get it perfectly plumb by just increasing them, increasing each corner a little bit more or less depending on how tight you need it. Okay, I've got all of the posts set for the deck. As you can see, we worked it out so that we have the equal spacing. It's an app that Peak has where you can input all the dimensions for your deck, and it will tell you the exact spacing to use so that everything's perfect. As you can see, I've got a couple sections of the railing panels installed. I'm going to show you guys how to do this. So I always like to double check my measurements. Grab your tape measure, measure from the inside of one post to the inside of the next post. This measurement is 61 inches. You want to subtract a 1/4 inch on each side, so that's a full 1/2 inch. So from 61 total, we're going to go to 60.5 inches and mark that on our panel. Okay. We've got our panel here. The way I like to do this, grab your tape measure, hook it on the last baluster at the outside, and then extend your tape. And like I said, we want 60.5 inches. So I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to take a mark at 60.5 inch. The problem, if I were to cut this here, this wouldn't be the same spacing on both ends. So I'm going to measure from the edge of this baluster over to my mark, which is just over 2.5 inches. This is 2 5/8. So I want to split that in half, which is 1.5/16 inches. So I'm going to take my tape measure, stick it on the edge of the baluster, and mark 1.5/16 inches. I'm going to do the same thing on this end, 1.5/16 inches. And then using my speed square, I'm simply going to transfer that line up. And I'm going to do this on all 4 sides and then cut it. For those of you following along, your sections of railings are going to have different measurements than mine. Just follow the steps I just showed, and this is going to give you equal spacing on both sides of the baluster, which is going to look the best. Now, when it comes to cutting these sections of railing, I find the easiest way to do this is with a circular saw. I just use a normal blade. Aluminum is a soft metal, so you can easily cut it with this blade. Yes, this blade will be damaged afterwards. You don't want to use it for fine carpentry, but it'll still be fine for rough framing and whatnot. If you don't want to use a circular saw, you could use a jigsaw. Sorry, you could use a reciprocating saw, a jigsaw, or a grinder. I just find the circular saw is the quickest way. So take your square, grab some safety glasses, and you want to line up your saw against the square and then cut right on that line you drew. As you can see, we got a nice clean cut. It's perfectly straight. There's no burring. This is by far the quickest way to cut these railings. I'll go around and cut all 4. If you don't feel comfortable cutting the railings using a circular saw like this, there are other options of tools that I listed before. So this cutoff here is waste, and as you can see, we've got the exact same spacing on each end of our railing panels. So now we can go and install this. With the panel, this little T-shaped piece should be included in the packaging. It slides into grooves at the bottom. You want to click that in, and then since we left our post loose, we have a little bit of play. Take one end of the railing and slide it into the post. It might be easiest if you wiggle the post backwards a little bit and connect the post into the railing, then do the same on the other side. All right, as you can see, I got the panel in. It was a tight fit, but having the wiggle room in the anchors down here makes all the difference, because you can swing these posts over and really push it all together. So we've got these 3 sections of railing done. Next, I'm going to work on these 2 corners. So repeat the same process, cut my pieces and click them in. I wanted to take a second to show you guys another section of how I install this railing. So again, we keep the post loose with just the 2 anchors so we can pivot it. I like to pivot the post back, slide the railing in on the top and bottom, and then drop it down and click it into the other side, and then just make sure that it's nice and tight. Now that we've got all these sections in, the last thing that we have to do, if you look down here, there's holes. These holes are on the bottom and top. With each section of railing, there should have been a bag with some screws. These screws have cutting teeth on, so you don't need to pre-drill. We want to screw the rail down in here. So we left a little 1/4 inch gap. Make sure that you got equal spacing on both sides. And then using your screwdriver, you can screw it in just like that. So I'm going to go around and do all these. I've got all the screws in the bottom going down this entire railing. The next thing to do is put our screws in the top. Before I do that, I like to grab my level. Since these anchors are still loose, it's always a good idea to double check and make sure that your post is still plumb. If it's not, you can do micro adjustments by pushing and pulling the railing. These will help you to pull these or push them so that you can get it perfectly plumb. Just like that, we're in a good spot. So I'm going to screw the top in. We need to do the exact same thing on the top and bottom rail on the inside all the way down as well. Okay, I've got all those screws holding the top and bottom rail on. Now the last thing to do is to anchor our posts fully to the ground. Before we anchor them, again, you always want to double check and just make sure that your post is plumb. So we want it to be plumb on 2 sides, which we are here. If you're not, I showed you guys already how you can shim these posts up using washers. So I'm gonna now fasten this down into the deck. Double check to confirm that we're plumb. Now the nice thing about these fasteners that the Peak system provides, these are 6-inch long. They have washers built into the top, so you don't need to put any washer on top, and they have cutting teeth, so you don't need to pre-drill. When you're fastening these posts to your deck, you need to fasten them into something solid. So I'm screwing these posts down into this rim joist. That's plenty solid. Back here, I have already installed blocking. So depending where the joists on your decks are, you need these leg bolts to go into something solid. They can't just go into a deck board. So if you have to, you may have to go up underneath your deck and put some blocking in so that they're going into something solid. These fasteners here, they use a special bit called a Torx. It's a T30. I mentioned this earlier, but you can see it here. As I tighten down these anchors, they're slightly pulling the post in different directions. You can use this to do micro adjustments to get your post perfectly plumb. Just like that, our post is secured. It's nice and solid. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to fasten on all of the last of this hardware on these other posts. All right, guys, as you can see, I've got all the railings on. Everything is screwed together. I've got all the fasteners down. If you look straight at this railing over here, you can see, looking down the top, it's nice and straight. That's because all my posts are plumb, straight up and down. So the last thing to do is to take these covers. These come with your posts. They just clip together and they go on the bottom of your posts to cover up all the fasteners. So I'm going to go around and clip all these on. Now, one thing I forgot to show, this deck has a weird angle on it. So it's not a 90-degree angle. If you had a traditional deck with a square corner, you can get a corner post. Here we have this weird angle, so I mounted these custom angle brackets, and the way they work, you can simply pivot the bracket to whatever angle you need. So I was able to mount them on the top and bottom so that we could have this custom angle here. Now the last thing to do on the bottom rail is this little bracket. This is designed to help support some of the weight of the railing here to prevent it from bowing down in the middle under extreme circumstances. So if you want, you can screw it into place. They come with these 1.5-inch screws. Before you screw it down, grab your tape measure and measure to find the middle of the section of railing and then adjust it so it's in the middle. Then you can screw it down into place. All right, guys, just like that, I've got the railings all finished. So we have this upper section on the deck and then we have the stair railings. If you have any questions, leave them down below in the comment section and I'll do my best to reply. Thank you guys all for watching. If you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. And I have all kinds of other home renovation tips and tricks on my channel.